Welcome to Gray Overload, and I finally got around to testing the U7 Pro XGS or U7 XGS Pro, depending upon what you're looking at here from Ubiquiti. And I also tested against the U6 Professional. So, this was one of the best APs they had at the time, and then this is their new one, new design too, as you can tell. The iconic dome that they've had all this time. And then this one, actually, I really like the design. Overall, it's a nice design. I really enjoy it. Also got some more features in it. We're going to go over some of the features here and the differences overall between these two here in a second. But I did some speed tests basically from a laptop, all 5 gigahertz, 2.4. There's going to be minor differences. And of course, only the U7 has 6 gigahertz. The U6 Professional does not. So while I did try the 6 gigahertz, we'll get into that in a little bit more later on. It is quite quick, but yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. First off, what were some of the major differences here? Now, first off the bat, right, wireless 7 versus wireless 6, right? The new U7 Pro XGS has wireless 7 where you only get wireless 6. Now, this does have some more spatial streams. It's got 8 versus 6. So this one only has, the U6 only has 6. Well, that comes down to a little bit different, or, in a second here, which is the 6 gigahertz bands on here, right? That's kind of down the specs. And Ubiquiti's compare now actually is a lot better than what it used to be. So you can actually compare two products in here and see this down. The price difference, right? This is $300 and this is $159 right now at Ubiquiti's site. So price is subject to change, I'm sure, depending upon how products go. That is a lot difference. You have 10 gig Ethernet on here. You only have gig on here as well. This has weatherproofing of IP54. This does not. PoE plus on here. So that's kind of the breakdown. This covers a little bit more. They say this covers 1750 square feet, whereas this is 1500 square feet. So that's, the quick and dirty. You get, your 5 gigahertz band here on the Pro XGS. That's going to be, higher theoretical throughput, 8.6 gigabits per second, while the U6 is not that, right? That U6 on 5 gigahertz is only 4.8. So a little bit less there. You get about 6 gigahertz, 5.8 gigabits per second, they say. That the reason why is this can go up to 240 on the band, where hertz on the band. This only does 160, so that's where you get your extra 5 gigahertz from. Also 320, and then 2.5 is 40. A little bit faster with Wi-Fi 6. All the antennas on both for 5 and 6 are 6 dBi, and then 4 on the 2.4. So let's see, do we have to worry? Actually, the transmit power on this one, I didn't even notice that, is 29 dBm versus 26 dBm for the 5 gigahertz, and 2.4 is just 1 dBm more on this one. So also it's 24. But other than that, features overall, this has a lot more features, right? It has real-time spatial analysis, zero-weight DFS. What else does it have on here? Whereas the other one does not. Also, though, it's a 29 watt max power consumption versus 13 on the U6. So higher, power consumption, also heavier, about 300 grams heavier as well. But you do get the 10 gig PoE plus you'll need, and this is also only rated ambient temperature from -22 to 104, whereas the U6 is -22 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. So both of those were in Fahrenheit. So that's kind of the quick breakdown of these. They were both in the exact same spot, tested in the exact same spot. I used the U6 for since I bought it, so I'm sure I have that video on here and I forgot to look that up. The U7 Pro XGS, that one has been, since my unboxing, I've been using it every single day. It has a range of devices on it. When I tested it, both devices had, excuse me for a second. Sorry about that, had to take a cough. But, both these devices have been used. They had about 10 devices to 11 devices on them, consistently. That would spike up depending upon if people roamed into it or not. At the time of testing, both had 10 devices on it the entire time. And the reason why I do testing like that, I know, you could be like, well, you should really have just one item. I'm doing a kind of a more real world scenario here. Let's put the same devices on it. Let's see how it's working, and then let's speed test it to, either I did a phone on my phone, and then which is the Nothing Phone 3, which is Wi-Fi 7, and then I did my laptop to using TCP, which gave me some throughput there to a server that's on 2.5 gig NIC. So hopefully that you had enough throughput there. That was my goal. I don't have anything 10 gig on the other side to really test it, but that was my goal, to kind of get throughput and everything on this. And so we're going to go through a breakdown of this, and hopefully I have all these displayed correct for you as we go through them. But we're going to start with the phone. And so it's a Nothing Phone 3, right? It's Wi-Fi 7. Works really good. I like the throughput of it, and I've been testing that throughput consistently, just to see, even on just a normal speed test, if it would work. And I use a lot of Ubiquiti stuff, so you got Wi-Fi Man, and the nice thing about Wi-Fi Man is you can actually test just the speed to the access point, right? You don't actually have to all the way go back and do a speed test to the internet. You can just do the speed test directly to that device, which I do appreciate. I think that they should put that into the Wi-Fi Man laptop or desktop software as well, because it is a very useful feature. Now, with the phone, it's at 5 gigahertz. These are all set up at 160 megahertz, and on the phone, right, that is using 2x2, and the PHY speed was 2161 megabits per second and 2401 megabits per second. And the firmware on this was 8.2.17. And all the settings were the same across the devices, right? I just used the default kind of apply across them, so I'm not using the what is it in Wi-Fi 7, the band combining and stuff. That wasn't enabled. But and we'll go over the U6 here for a second. On the phone, 5 gigahertz, 50 dBm, the connection rate. Wi-Fi, the phone was connected at Wi-Fi 6, even though it's a Wi-Fi 7 device, right? This only supports Wi-Fi 6. 2x2 still, that was 1729, the PHY speed, by 2161 megabits per second up. This was on firmware 6.7.33. So I've said the firmware now, and this is the same firmware through the entire test, so hopefully you pay attention if I don't remember to mention it each time. Now, the speeds on these here on the inside. So this is, 7 feet away. It's not anywhere near a direct line of sight. My desk is sitting behind, the access point is mounted, so I work in the basement. Access point is mounted up on the ceiling there, and right next to it is, guess what? My HVAC vents, right? So all the ductwork is right there, which is all metal, and in between there is all my stuff. So as you can imagine, not ideal conditions and all. This is more real world than it is how fast you can actually get the device. But sitting there, I'm, out of all three here, let's, I should have done this real quick. Give me 1 second here. Got the averages, and I took 3 runs each run, then I just took that and averaged it. So when my phone's connected up to the in this inside scenario, right? I'm inside the house here, within 10 feet of it, with the obstructions and stuff. It's connecting, down, you're getting about 1377 megabits per second. Up, you're getting about 1080 megabits per second, and I'll have all these rounded. I'll try to have everything out here for the averages, and you get as low as I was getting, high 900s, and then on the upload speeds, and then about 1150 for the upload speeds, and the download speeds I was getting a low of in the 1350s and then all the way up to 1420s, right? Someplace in there is a consistent range on that U7 Pro XGS. Works really well. Like the throughput, you know, and this is with other devices connected. This isn't anything special, right? And so that worked really well. Now, when I jumped over to the U6 Pro, and I've been trying to identify a problem I've been having for a while, and I haven't got anywhere on it. I think it's a problem. Now, I can't really fully tell, but the U6 was interesting on this. And just, you know, as you go through this, you'll be kind of putting these all together, and maybe I'll put all the averages in once at the end, and maybe you can kind of see them. But down, the average was only 553. You know, you had a span between, it was all in the 550s. It's very consistent. Then the upload speed was a bigger range, like 780s to 914, but that's 865 megabits per second up. So you're getting about, you know, 300 megabits per second up more than you were getting down on this guy when you're sitting on my desk. And this is not just some one-off. I've ran tests the whole time I've been having this. I kind of like to test stuff, see where the speed's at, and see, you know, what it's kind of doing. And I really don't understand everything. I thought for a while I was missing a setting. I've looked at the settings and stuff like that, trying to adjust, you know, searched on forums and stuff like that, you know. Even gone to AI and asked him what was I doing wrong. You know, I've gone through different setup procedures. You know, what I know with Wi-Fi and stuff and networking, and I know enough to be dangerous. I'm not perfect at it, so I know enough to get myself into trouble as well. But remember, these settings are the same on each one. I didn't change anything. I'm just trying to, and maybe there's another setting to help me out and somebody to do that. But the mere fact that the U7 doesn't show this same issue gives me a little pause. Now, this isn't the only U7 Pro or U6 Pro I have. This is the only U7 I have, but the other U6 Pro does exhibit the same type of experience, so I'm not fully shocked by this, right? I've had enough to be able to test this, so that's, you know, that's what it is, connecting up to a Wi-Fi 7 device, which is my phone. Now I move this outside. Now this is, you know, outside my basement. It is connecting to that U7 Pro XGS or the U6 Pro. That was there. I had these specifically named so that I know which device I was connecting to. Same devices connected the whole time. Same amount of devices, all that stuff, right? I was trying to make sure it was good. Now this is outside my basement. I have an exposed basement, so I just walked out, went outside, concrete wall and all, right? This is where it's powering through on the outside of my basement. I don't have a huge house, you know, would like a bigger one, help out with, you know, all the space issues, you know, I need with kids and everything else, but I don't. So walked outside, exposed basement. There's a window, but in the direct line of sight would have been concrete wall for the Wi-Fi there to the access point. So, and both devices, Y-test, when we get to the laptop, same exact spot. I put a container outside to make sure it was the same exact spot. I tested in this spot, so I didn't have to trick it too much, because I knew it would stay connected to whichever device I connected it to, because I'm trying to expand my wireless outside, and there's some U7s outside that it would connect to if I went any further out. So that's where I put these. I don't think that there's really a lot of wireless interference according to the you know, network scans and stuff that Ubiquiti's doing. It looks like I got a pretty good spacing on everything and how they adjust the channels and everything else. So keep that in mind. Now, the down on this, when you have the U7 XGS Pro, that is going to be about 269 throughput there. The up is 289 megabits per second. On the U6 Pro, it's a little bit better, happened to be going outside, which was interesting to me, which was 374 up, or down, I should say, 374 down. I'm doing down first, why is this? And then 380 up. So that's on the phone. That's kind of how it's set up. So you can see there's little differences here. I'd say that distance there was probably with the concrete wall in the exact same spot on the exact same container between these two devices is roughly, I'd say 25 feet, roughly in that range. It's hard to measure through the wall, you know, to know for sure, but that's where that kind of sits. Now, let's jump over to the laptop. Now, this is a 12th gen laptop. This is a Wi-Fi 6E card on it, the Intel AX210, using NTT TCP on this. I had receive send set up both sides, so we had that. Now, oh, you know what? I forgot one thing on the last one. I'll mention that here. But on the laptop, that's about 56 dBm connection at 5 gigahertz for the SGS Pro. Again, that's 51 as well on the U6 Pro. And they're connecting both, happens to be at, well, the U7 is connecting at 1.7 gigabits per second both ways, and then the U6 is 1.4 gigabits and then 1.9 on the laptop. So just keep that in mind. I will hopefully add some of the connection speeds and stuff to the other ones that I just forgot. Looking at my spreadsheet here and jumping around in it. But when we do that on this laptop, which is a 12th gen framework, so this device has been my workhorse since I bought it. 5th gen should not be anything there. The NTT command, I kind of optimized it as much as I could to make sure I had the most throughput. And it was interesting because I spent a lot of time trying to just force more performance on it, probably way more time testing this on there because, you know, Windows came out with the article saying iPerf wasn't there, and then I wanted to see, well, if I ever go to Linux, do I want to be able to keep this data or have enough familiarity with this command so I know what I'm doing? And so I went down this route. Windows said, you know, in their blog post another command. I tried that. It doesn't give you, it's about the same result. Now, a speed test, like if you went to a speed test, you can get more throughput on the laptop through like, you know, speedtest.net or speed.ui on the down. However, that does not test everything that I wanted to. So after tweaking it a lot and finally getting something close on the down, then I was able to work a lot better and get much closer to what I was seeing on there. So there was a lot there. Like if you just go and run this command, here's how I should put it. If you're just going to go out and run this command right away, you're probably going to run into issues where you're not getting what you can see on speedtest.net. But after some tweaking, you'll get very close, depending upon throughput and your computer specs and everything else. So this is not the there's enough out there that if you just start tweaking it and reading a little bit, you can get pretty good throughput. So I was able to get about 988 megabits per second on the U7 XGS Pro inside, which is, you know, that's saying about 10 feet-ish away from the AP, you know, behind ductwork and everything else. Up is about 601, so not exactly symmetrical here. But you get a little bit better than what I was. Well, I guess I was hoping for, you know, being way more symmetrical for what it was connecting at there. But you know, again, I was trying to get this all configured, and it was not taking the way I wanted it to. Now you go to the U6 Pro, and this is where it gets interesting because the down again 500, right? And we saw that with the phone where it was only stuck around 5, and here on the laptop 565. On the phone it was stuck around 553 on the downside. So you're really kind of reaching kind of a little bit of a, seems like a ceiling on the U6 Pro, whatever it is, if it's a setting or something else. But the up speed was 858 here, which is actually a little bit faster than the XGS Pro or the Pro XGS, right? So that you know, that threw me into let's dig into this a little bit more, which took me more testing, and I still was getting the results in that range, right? These are 3 tests across there, and I'm just like, well, if I'm getting this, I'm not going to spend a million years on this, but we'll go from there. Then I jumped outside. Now outside we'll go back to, and actually saying some of the data here, that dropped me down to about 60 dBm. The connection speed was about 432 megabits per second on both for the U7 Pro XGS. Whereas when you jumped over to the U6, that was negative 69 dBm, and the PHY speed on that, your connection speed was only 576, and then 344 megabits per second. You're down and up. So you kind of go through that, and then you jump over, and we'll have the speeds, right? The laptop to the XGS was 136 by 114. You're down and you're up. And then if you jump to the U6 Pro, that's 111 and 186. So a little bit higher on the up as well on the U6 Pro. So you start to see that the U6 Pro in certain scenarios here, when it was not inside and connected but outside, was connected faster with the U6 overall, which was impressive. Now, and on the laptop. But once you jump up to the Wi-Fi 7, this really shined overall on the phone, right? That had really good, except for that outside scenario that we had there. Now, that kind of is how it ended out to be. Now, going back real quick, the phone outside was connected. So let's just go over the quick kind of the connections here, and I'll kind of go saying the DPM. So the phone inside, right? And this is all on the XGS Pro, so the Pro XGS, U7 Pro XGS was 53 and 60 for the phone, and then the U6 was 50 and 63, so negatives on those, right? dBm each one, and the speed connection was anywhere from 21 or 2.1 gigabits per second, and then 1.2 gigabytes per second, whereas the Pro on the phone was 1.7 and then 800 megabits per second. So your connections, just your PNY speed, that connection was a lot lower. Now, you go take a look at what the laptop was doing in that same scenario at negative 56 and negative 62 dBm for inside versus outside. And then when you on the XGS U7, then you jump over to U6, and you're getting anywhere from negative 51 to negative 69 inside outside, right on the phone. And then those were connecting at 1.7 and then gigabits per second. Then you had 432 megabits per second, whereas the laptop was sitting at the 1.4 and 1.9, and then 576 and 344 megabits per second. So that's kind of how it all breaks down. I'll try to have all this data kind of at least in a spreadsheet a little bit kind of cleaned up for you, at least posted while I'm going through it. I'll have to create those little slides and stuff there, but hopefully that lays it out a little bit. Now we get into the Wi-Fi 6 stuff. Now, granted, the U6 does not have Wi-Fi 6 gigahertz band on it, right? This is just Wi-Fi 6, 5 gigahertz. I did not get the U6 Plus. I think that has 6 gigahertz. So this was testing on it. And by the way, if I'm inside with this in that location where it's at, it does not connect at my desk. So this turned into a project, and I got frustrated having it on and not being able to connect, or not being able to stay connected in 6 gigahertz. It worked better when I was upstairs, and I don't know. I just, at this point, the duct worked in between it and everything else. I was frustrated, and I said, you know what? Well, we'll have some data, and I tested it. I got through one test once on both, and I didn't even write down the laptop one because, well, I got through one test on the phone and then partial one test on the laptop. Laptop switched to 5 gigahertz midstream, screwed up my test, and I said I give up. So that is kind of what happened overall. On the phone I was getting a gig up and a gig down. You're getting 1025 and then 1198. So, it's good speed if you can stay connected. The problem is it getting connected, and that's kind of the rundown of this. What would I do? Now, your price is a lot different here, right? The U6 is $159 versus the the $300 U7 Pro XGS. Now, I like the Pros a little bit better. than just the regular U7 XGS. But you know, I'm kind of going for a little bit of longevity. You know, you'd be like, well, you've upgraded your APs over time. Yeah, but a lot of these APs get repurposed into different locations. So that's not minor. If I was going to buy something and I had a budget and wanted some good throughput, I'm going with the U6, right? That's got a good benefit, good value there, a lot. And in fact, guess where this wasn't going? Into an install here. It works really well. I really like it. You have some extra weatherproofing on there. It's got some things there, and it's PoE. If you have only PoE stuff and you're on gig and everything, this makes a lot of sense. Now, if you are in the area where you're upgrading your network and going more 10 gig, more you know, PoE++ everywhere, and you have that enabled, if you don't want to keep buying, you know, a whole bunch of PoE++ adapters, you know, to do the PoE stuff, then, you know, the Pro XGS. Now, this is all, they were back to the same switch on the 10 gig port. I use a 10 gig SFP to an RJ45. Then I use the PoE adapter to power both of them. Same stuff. So it's all the same setup, same connection, everything. So I made sure all that was identical. But this thing, right? This, you know, you need a little bit extra power. You need to take that into consideration if you're going to go with something like this. I did an update scenario. So my brother had a long range, I think, to a to another long range, or some setup, a nano to, he had a long range to a long range, I think. And we did some, you know, calculation. We went to a U7 Pro XGS. Why did we go with this? Well, in his scenario, in his setup, he's trying to get wireless connection to a garage through apartments. So we're fighting apartments and everything else. A little bit extra money, then we went to U7 Outdoor Pro, I think, and that solved a lot of the downlink issues that he was having. Now he's kind of outpowering everybody around him, right? You have the little bit extra here. You get a little bit more distance out of the U7 Pro XGS, and that's one reason to consider it if you're trying to cover a little bit more range, willing to spend the extra money for that. You have a little bit more power here, right? That is something to consider when you're taking this in. Also, it's wireless 7, so if you're in using some 6 gigahertz, or you want a little bit more, you know, 5 gigahertz at 320 or 240 instead of 160 to get that bigger throughput, that you could do that there. Now in my testing, it's all 160 because they all apply across the board, and Ubiquiti didn't have a max of 320. I think that only shows up if you have only Wi-Fi 7 ones, and the overall apply. But you can see there's a difference even at 160. Remember, once you go higher, you're going to shrink your area a little bit there, depending upon where you have it in the location, right? In my scenario, there's duct work and everything else, right? This is a house. This isn't perfect and ideal, but it was a testing scenario. So with that, let me know what questions you have on this. You know, my recommendation is going to come down to price. What are you exactly looking for? If you're looking for wireless 7, you know, you're probably looking in the new design, you're going to spend a little bit more than the non-XGS, right? If you're just the U7 Pro, I think that's like $20 cheaper. So keep that in mind if you just are okay with the dome and don't care about the new design. I wanted the new design just to see how it looked, and yeah, that's why I went with it. But am I pleased with it? Yes. If I didn't need to do a U6 Pro install, would I still be using, would have gotten the U7 Pro XGS? No, I would still be using the U6 Pro because it works fine. So with that, hopefully that helps you out. If you have any questions, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon. I really do appreciate it, and watching one of my videos, that really does help with the channel. I appreciate so much your support for Gray Overload and help this channel grow. Till next time, God bless.